Hi everybody, I'm Chris Hitz from Advanced Drying and Restoration, and thanks for tuning in to one of our video blogs. Today we're answering some questions for you regarding insurance and the restoration business that we're in. So today's question that we're going to answer is a pretty common one that we get. Is flooding covered by my standard homeowners policy? Now flooding, there's several different things that could be called flooding. The first thing that I'm going to say though is a caveat here that talk to your insurance agent. They're the ones that are going to know your policy in and out. All that we know is what our 18 years of experience in the disaster restoration industry and cleaning up after thousands of flood damages and water damages. And that experience tells us most things that typically are covered by a standard homeowners policy. So the question, is flooding covered by my standard homeowners insurance policy? There are certain sources that would be covered by that, and those are water intrusions. Water from a pipe break, for instance, or a plumbing failure in your house could cause some flooding to your home, and that would be a typical coverage that would be, or a typical issue that would be covered by your standard homeowners insurance policy. Ice damming in the wintertime, where the ice backs up underneath your shingles and water intrudes in. Wind-driven rain, if you leave the windows open by chance in the summertime, you get those real strong winds, or drives it through the siding, or wind forced in from wind-driven rain. Or if your roof gets blown off and there's water that comes in and damages your property from that. Those are all typical flooding occurrences that could be covered by your standard homeowners insurance policy. Now there's a few things that would be typically not covered by that do happen to homes often. Some of those things would be failure of your sump pump. So if you live in this area, chances are pretty good you have a sump pump in your basement. If the power goes out or if that sump pump failures for any reason, the damages that arise from that would need to have a separate endorsement or a separate policy that would be in place to your standard homeowners insurance policy that is specific to cover sump pump failure. And you can usually choose the limits of coverage that are there. Sometimes it's very small limits, as little as $5,000, and sometimes it can be as much as the limits of your policy, which can be several $100,000 depending on where you live. Other things that could be covered with a separate endorsement would be a backup of your sewer and drains. Those sewer and drains, when the rains happen very heavily, oftentimes the sewers in the city will back up. That forces that sewage into the path of least resistance, which can oftentimes be into your basement. So that backup needs to have a separate policy or an endorsement to have coverage. The third thing that happens oftentimes is just groundwater intrusion. So if the water table outside is pretty high, foundations have some little creaks and cracks in them, the water can intrude from there. Typically that's not a coverable loss unless you have a separate policy that covers specifically that. And that's going to be a policy that's sold through your agent. It's going to be a flood insurance policy. It's sold through your agent, but it's resold by actually FEMA provides those policies. And those policies, depending on where you're located, is going to determine how costly that policy is. If you're not in a floodplain, they can be only $100 or a few $100s a year. If you are in a floodplain near a creek, near a river, near the lake, those types of areas where flooding can be a common occurrence, your policy limits or your policy premiums are going to be higher. But that will cover you for groundwater intrusions. The policies can range in coverage, they can range in cost, so talk to your agent about those. So to recap things again, some flooding is covered by your standard homeowners policy. Those things like pipe breaks, ice damming, wind-driven rain, and roof blow-offs. If water intrudes your home, those are typically standard coverage provided by your insurance policy. The things that you're going to need a separate policy or endorsement to cover is going to be things like your sump pump failure, sewer and drain backup, or water intrusion. So speak to your agent. Keep our number handy from Advanced Drying and Restoration so that we can help you out if you have any need for our services. Advanced Drying and Restoration, rebuilding homes and restoring